Hey guys, Michael here again. So today we're going to do a quick video because it is hot in my garage. It's almost 90 degrees already, 60% humidity, and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, we're going to make this a pretty quick one. But yeah, so I have my wine glass here. We're going to etch on a wine glass using my secret weapon here. And let's get to it. All right, so let's jump right on in. So I have my wine glass here, my secret weapon. Before I get to that, let me clean off the wine glass, make sure there's no impurities on there. I have a towel here with some isopropyl alcohol in there. I'm just going to clean this off of where I want the design to go, just to make sure this thing's nice and clean. And let that dry and evaporate. Move that out of the way. So the secret weapon we're going to be using is something called Tempera Paint. You can find this anywhere in a craft store. I found, well, looking online and what people are saying is the purple one works the best. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I picked up. I think this is violet, and that's what we're going to go with. So I have a paintbrush and a heat gun. You can also use a hairdryer. So the first thing you're going to need to do is, once you clean your wine glass, and this can work on a piece of flat glass, any type of glass really that you want to use, this etching method for. So what you want to do is put a few drops on the glass you're going to be etching, and you'll want to paint this on here as smoothly, as evenly as you can. This paint, it does go on kind of weird because it is glass. So you just have to have a light hand. Don't push too hard when you're doing this. And you don't have to do the whole thing. Just do where you're going to be doing the etching at. Okay, so I have that first coat done. I'm going to put a few more drops on there and put my second, followed by the third coat. Now, when you put the coats on top of the existing coats, be careful with the paintbrush. Don't push too hard because you actually take off the first coat. So just be gentle when you do this. Use almost the weight of the brush itself to brush it on. Okay, so I have my 3 coats on there. Let me switch on over to the XCS software so that we can come up with a design for this wine glass. Okay, so this was the wine glass design that I was going to use, and I created all this inside the XCS software itself. However, since this wine glass is kind of short, this one won't work really well. This one actually works better for a tumbler. So I want to keep this. I don't want to lose what I have here. So I'm going to come down here at the bottom and add a new canvas so I can come up with a new design here. All right, so on the second tab, I'm going to come over here and hit text, click on the screen, and I'm going to put the text that I want to put on my wine glass. In this case, I'm going to make it say, "Be kind," and then rewind. Like that right there. The text, I know, can only be 1.5 inches high because of the height of my wine glass. I've already measured that. So I'm going to change the height to 1.5 because I'm in inches up here. And that looks a little fat as far as width goes. Let me just bring this in a little bit. And then I need to justify that text and center it. So now XCS has the ability to align it left, middle, and right. So I'm going to do align middle. And that way they're on top of each other. Now I kind of want "Be kind" and "Rewind" to be the same width. So I'm just going to come up here and add a space between "Be" and "kind" and an additional space. That way they're kind of in the same rectangular area. And then let me change it to engrave and take a look at it. Now, one thing I noticed is, look at that font right here. Let me zoom in using the control and mouse wheel. That font looks really weird, and that's the way it's actually going to engrave. I don't know why it does that, so I'm going to change the font type and see if we can fix that. Let's change it to Arial Narrow. Let's see what that looks like. So Arial Narrow does look better. It has these little white spots in here, but since we're actually etching, I don't think I'm going to see a difference in that at all, because the etching pretty much blurs into itself. I don't think we'll be able to notice that they're going to be so small. So let's try that. So again, let's double check the size. So I have 1.564. That's close enough. I'll change to 1.5 and see if it stays there. And 2.5 inches wide. That's, let me see if I can make it 2. All right, be kind, rewind, and we got 2 inches wide, 1.5 inches tall. All right, and as you can see, I still have my original design here, and you can keep going and adding canvases. So let me save my file, so that way I can have this for future use. So now let's come back to the M1 and let's set up our rotary tool. Okay, so here we have the rotary tool and we have the wine glass. Now, the tricky part is figure out how are we going to put this wine glass on this particular rotary tool. If I try to put it on here, it won't sit on there. So they make these tools, these rigs that will actually hold it like this with some bearings in the backside. That would work, but I don't have that. However, I'm lucky enough to where I can rotate this around and it'll still fit on there and be able to rotate. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind is these are rubber, but it does want to tend to slip on here. So you need to add a weight to your wine glass to weigh it down. Easiest way to do that is to take a sock, fill it with rice, and tie the end off, and you can actually put this inside your tumbler, inside your wine glass. So all I have to do is drop it in there, and that's going to add some weight to it to actually put some more friction on that rubber wheel to make it not slip. Now, before I put this inside the M1, I need to figure out what size riser I need to go with. So here I have my 4x4 blocks, and what I want to try to do is get the blocks close to the top of the wine glass, because that's going to make it easy to auto measure using the M1. This will get me pretty close. I also have this 1x block that is cut the same width, and that's going to be really close. So I think I'm going to start with this setup to lift the M1 onto this. So let me get this out of the way and show you how I lift this up as about as safely as I can on top of these when you're balancing it. Okay, so I have my riser blocks here. Let me take the base out of the M1. So now I'm going to set the risers in place close to where they're going to be. I decided to go with this 2-block method. So let me put them in the corners and put these on the inside with the base removed. I'm going to put them on the inside against the back opening. Oops. So let me see if I can show you, because this is, I think, the safest way that I've found to do this. All right, so with these against the front and these against the back opening, all I have to do is lift this straight up, over, and down onto the blocks. Rather than trying to balance this while slipping blocks on there, I prep them like this, pick it up, put it down, and then I can actually adjust them a little bit by moving them around. But that's the easiest way I found to put them on, or put the M1 on top of riser blocks without actually kind of fumbling around with it too much. Okay, so let me get the rotary tool in place real quick. Attach it to the back. So before I put the glass on top of the rotary tool, I need to insert my sock filled with rice. And also there's one other thing I need to do. So as you know, the laser is going to hit this. It's going to want to maybe penetrate through here and shoot and possibly burn my sock of rice. So I just take a piece of aluminum foil and put it inside there, sort of as a backer behind the paint. And then I put the sock inside there. That way, if any laser does escape, it will actually just hit the aluminum foil and not burn my sock here. All right, so let's put this in place inside the M1. Got the glass in there now. Now, let me turn on the M1 and see if I can get the auto measure to make sure I can get the right height. Let's come over here and get that laser on top of the glass, right at the peak of it. Close the lid. And let me perform an auto measure real quick. So the auto measure is failing. So let me see if I can take a look at this thing and figure out why is it failing. So looking at this, I think it's actually maybe too low. Let me take out the smaller 1-inch risers and see if that is enough to make it auto measure. All right, readjust underneath the laser, close the lid. Let's try it again. All right, we're failing again. So now what? So I think what we're going to have to do is the ruler method. So let me turn the M1 off. And with it turned off, you can actually move the gantry and laser head. All right, let me get my ruler. I'm not sure if you can see this. So I have my ruler, and what I'm going to do is, with this turned off, you can actually move this left and right, forward and back gently. And I'm going to take this ruler and put it just against the face of this and down on top of the highest point of what I want to engrave. And I need to measure where it is from the top of this to this ruler. Now, it's hard to show this on camera, so I'm just going to do it looking at it. So it's almost at the 0 mark. So my thickness or my distance I need to put is 0. If it were further down, let me see if I can show you here. If it were further down, it would be wherever it says on the top, and I would enter that dimension. Let's say it's, right there. I would put 6 millimeters in the distance, but this one actually is about right there. So I'm going to put it 0 and see what happens. Now, when I turn it back on, you don't have to move this back. When you turn it back on, it actually goes home on its own. So let me go ahead and turn it on. Okay, so now that I know the distance is going to be 0, let me go ahead and change this to rotary mode. So we have laser cylindrical. And over here inside the M1, you don't have to leave this underneath the laser point. You can actually move this around wherever you want once you get that auto measure feature, if you can get the auto measure feature to work. So I can put this wherever I want. I just want to make sure it's actually, parallel with this gantry. That way the text is going to be straight on there. So with that in place, I'm now not going to touch this. I'm going to close the lid, and I'm going to align the text with the wine glass. Now, let me zoom in by holding the control key. Anything to the right of the line will be engraved. Anything to the left will not be engraved. Now, depending on what you're actually engraving, you can move this line left and right, and that is just basically the starting point. Since I'm doing a wine glass, I don't really care that this is in the middle or left or right. It doesn't matter. But let me zoom in a little bit and move this text to just to the right of that line. Now, I can see that I'm maybe running out of paint towards the end of that word. So let me go ahead and manually rotate this wine glass. So I know this wine glass actually is going to rotate this way because I have a reminder here that it tells me which way it's going to rotate. So I know it's going to start at the peak of this. So I want the paint close to the peak. Say right there. Again, make sure it's straight. Close the lid. And let's readjust this text. Now, this camera, you have to use as a ballpark. It's not going to be 100% accurate because it does distort it. It's trying to take an image of a 3D object using the flat camera. So it's not going to, and at a 45-degree angle. So it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it does get you in the ballpark. So what I want to do now is I'm going to come over here to start, and I'm going to try to frame it. I'm going to ignore this because I know I had to manually measure this. So I'm going to ignore it. And I'm going to go with framing to see what it's going to look like. Where is it going to engrave at inside the M1? Let's try this by holding the camera inside the unit to show you where it's going to engrave. Where it's going to. Okay, so I think that's going to work really well. So let me leave it, set it to engrave, set the power. And what I found works well on this, let me switch it back to millimeters because a lot of people like the millimeters, is 20 millimeters per second. And this is for etching glass using the tempera paint. So again, we have engrave, power 100, speed 20, and I am ready to hit start. I'm going to ignore this because I manually measured it, and actually let me show you real quick. So I manually measured it and it's set to 0, but if I needed to change that, I would change it here, but I don't need to because the way the ruler said it's going to be 0, so I'm going to leave that alone. So let me hit start. Ignore this. And there's what it's going to engrave. It says it's going to take 9 minutes. Let's send it and see what happens. Well, I messed up. I had to do it twice. The first time I did it, I think I put the paint on too thick. And as you saw when I was drying, it was actually cracking quite a bit. The second time, I actually put the paint on a little bit thinner, a bit more even. And it came out much better, as you can see. Take a look at here. This is before. You can see that it is missing some letters. And then when you flip it around, it looks much better. So mistakes happen. That's why you practice, practice, practice. And this was just a practice piece. Anyway, so this method can be used on pretty much anything. The reason I like this method above some other ones is this one's just water soluble. You just literally run it underneath the sink, wash it off, and it's done. It's easy to take off. There's no chemicals involved. And it's really cheap. This is going to last a really long time. You can use this method on glassware, on flat plate glass or whatever. Just it's a really cool method if you want to etch glass with a little diode laser. So appreciate you guys watching. Hey, we all make mistakes. You got to practice, practice, practice. But I hope you guys like the video. Hopefully it was helpful to you. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I'll see you next time.